Hey guys, today I'm going to talk to you about the government of ancient Greece. Now, there were lots of different types of government in ancient Greece, and they changed over time, but we will talk about some of the major forms of government, about where they were and what those types of government were. First of all, monarchs. Monarchs were big in the ancient world. Most civilizations started out with a king or a queen, somebody in charge of their civilization. This was somebody who was part of a royal family that passed down their rule from father to son through the generations. The city-state of Sparta actually had two kings, and so they would work side by side, and below them they had a council of 5 members of Ephors, and these Ephors would be on about the same level as the king, maybe just a little bit lower, that they would be able to keep the king in check and make sure that everything that the kings are doing is good for the city-state. Below the Ephors were the assembly. The assembly were the group of citizens that were over 30 years old. There'd be about 30 of them, and they would approve the laws. The California government also has a lawmaking body called the Assembly. Some Greek city-states had tyrants. A definition of a tyrant is a ruler who takes power by force. They overthrow the previous government. Our modern definition of tyrant is someone who is not taking into account the needs of the people. They are self-serving. They're trampling people's rights. We don't like tyrants. But in ancient Greece, a tyrant, it simply meant that they had overthrown the previous ruler, and usually they needed the support of the people to do that. So they may do good things for the people. It was possible for a tyrant to be actually good for society. They'd make great decisions. They would give people things. They would give them land or money or food or whatever promises they needed to get that support so that they could help overthrow the government so that they could be the leader. The philosopher Plato was the first to write about democracy. A lot of times we think of democracy as being invented by the Greeks, but it was not. Plato defined democracy as government being ruled by the people. And while the Greeks definitely pursued this form of government, we can see lots of other types of examples of government that they used. And we can see examples of other civilizations that used democracy before they did. In fact, the early Indians had democratic governments in the 6th century BCE, whereas Athens only had its democracy in about the 5th century BCE. Now keep in mind, Athenian democracy, as much as we make a big deal out of it, Athens had democracy. Athenian democracy was not ruled by all the people. It was government by the people, but not all the people. It was all citizens. Now, who was a citizen? Well, you weren't a citizen if you were a child, or a woman, or an enslaved person, or a foreigner, somebody who lived in a different city-state, who was born in a different city-state, who had moved to that city-state. All of these people had a lower status in the realm of government, and they were not part of that democratic decision-making process. Really, this means that the majority of Athenians were not part of the democratic decision-making process. Aristotle was another Greek philosopher, and he wrote about different types of government. He wrote about monarchy, oligarchy, and democracy. An oligarchy is a small group of people who are running the country. Usually this is a group of elites, people who have a lot of money or power or both. The idea of democracy is the whole population taking part in the decision-making process. Aristotle acknowledged that all of these government forms can have good and bad versions. It really depended on the people involved. He worried that a democracy would have too many people involved, and it would lack direction, and it would end up being mob rule. Whoever just gets really fired up about something, the mob goes with them, and they all end up making decisions that are maybe not the best thought out decisions. He worried that a tyrant would come in and make decisions that would ultimately be self-serving. They wouldn't serve the people, they would be serving themselves. Even if they were serving the people at one point, they could turn against the people whenever it served them. Aristotle's favorite form of government was oligarchy. He thought that this was best. He saw this as rule by the wealthy because they had the most to lose. The wealthy have the most land, they have people working for them, they have jobs, they have businesses. If something goes wrong for the city-state, the wealthy are the ones that will see the most change. In Aristotle's view, An oligarch would make sure that they did everything possible to make sure that a city-state was well taken care of. Greece was made up of city-states called polis. Athens and Sparta are the most famous, they were the most powerful, but they came in all sizes. There would be large city-states and small city-states. Most polis began with monarchies, with kings in charge. Some developed oligarchies, where there were small groups of wealthy citizens in charge.